Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master on Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we're here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 11, Text 19. Sonantonata karo kalo, nadir adi krid avyaya. Janam jane na janayan, marayan mrityun antakam. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing, but in the form of time he is the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he is the beginning of everything. Nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father and killed through the agency of death, but he is perpetually free of birth and death. Purport. The supreme authority and inconceivable power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be minutely studied from this verse. He is always unlimited. That means that he has no creation or end. He is, however, death in the form of time, as described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am death. I take away everything at the end of life. Eternal time is also without beginning, but it is the creator of all creatures. The example is given of touchstone, which creates many valuable stones and jewels, but does not decrease in power. Similarly, creation occurs many times, everything is maintained, and after a time everything is annihilated. But the original creator, the Supreme Lord, remains untouched and diminished in power. The secondary creation is made by Brahma, but Brahma is created by the Supreme Godhead. Lord Shiva annihilates the whole creation, but at the end he is also annihilated by Vishnu. Lord Vishnu remains. In the Vedic hymns, it is stated that in the beginning there is only Vishnu and that he alone remains at the end. An example can help us to understand the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. In the recent history of warfare, the Supreme Personality of Godhead created a Hitler, and before that a Napoleon Bonaparte, and they each killed many living entities in war. But in the end, Bonaparte and Hitler were also killed. People are still very much interested in writing and reading books about Hitler and Bonaparte and how they killed so many people in war. Year after year, many books are published for public reading regarding Hitler's killing thousands of Jews in confinement. But no one is researching who killed Hitler and who created such a gigantic killer of human beings. The devotees of the Lord are not interested in the study of flickering history of the world. They are interested only in Him, who is the original creator, maintainer, and annihilator. That is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Text 20. Navaisvapakshosya vipaksha evava parasya mrityur vishata samam prajaha tam dhavamanam anudhavantyan nisa yatha rajam syanilam bhuta shanga. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his feature of eternal time, is present in the material world and is neutral towards everyone. No one is his ally and no one is his enemy. Within the jurisdiction of the time element, everyone enjoys or suffers the result of his own karma, or fruit of activities. As when the wind blows, small particles of dust fly in the air, so according to one's particular karma, one suffers or enjoys material life. Purport. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of all causes, he is not responsible for anyone's material sufferings or enjoyment. There is no such partiality on the part of the Supreme Lord. The less intelligent accuse the Supreme of being partial and claim that this is why one enjoys in this material world and another suffers. But this verse specifically says that there is no such partiality on the part of the Supreme Lord. Living entities, however, are never independent. As soon as they declare their independence of the Supreme Controller, they are immediately put into this material world to try their luck freely as far as possible. When the material world is created for such misguided living entities, they create their own karma, fruit of actions, and take advantage of the time element, and thereby they create their own future or misfortune. Everyone is created, everyone is maintained, and everyone is ultimately killed. As far as these three things are concerned, the Lord is equal to everyone. It is according to one's karma that one suffers and enjoys. The living entity's higher or lower position, his suffering and enjoying, are due to his own karma. The exact word used in this connection is anisha, which means dependent on their own karma. The example is given that the government gives everyone the facilities for governmental action and management. But by one's own choices, one creates a situation which obliges him to exist under different types of consciousness. The example is given in this verse that when the wind blows, particles of dust float in the air. Gradually, lightning occurs, and then torrents of rain follow. And thus the rainy season creates a situation of varieties in the forest. God is very kind. He gives everyone an equal chance. But by the resultant actions of one's own karma, one suffers or enjoys this material world. Text 21. Ayuso pachayam jantos, tathaivo pachayam vibhu, ubhabhyam rahitas vasto, dustasya vidhadhatyaso. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is all-powerful, and he awards the results of one's fruit of activities. Thus, although one living entity's duration of life is very small, whereas that of another is very great, he is always in his transcendental position, and there is no question of lessening or increasing his duration of life. Purport. Both the mosquito and Lord Brahma are living entities in the material world. Both are minute sparks and are part of the Supreme Lord. The very short duration of life of the mosquito and the very long lifetime of Lord Brahma are both awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the results of their karma. But in the Brahma Samhita, we find it said, Karmani Nirdahati. The Lord diminishes or vanquishes the reactions of devotees. The same fact is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yagyartat karmano nyatra. One should perform karma only for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, one is bound by the action and reaction of karma. Under the laws of karma, a living entity wanders within the universe under the rule of eternal time, and sometimes he becomes a mosquito and sometimes Lord Brahma. To a sane man, this business is not very fruitful. Bhagavad Gita 9.25 gives a warning to the living entities. Yanti deva vrata devan. Those who are addicted to the worship of the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, and those who are addicted to the worship of the Pittas, the forefathers, go to the Pittas. Those who are inclined to material activities remain in the material sphere. But those who engage in devotional service reach the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where there is neither birth nor death, nor different varieties of life under the influence of the law of karma. The best interest of the living entity is to engage himself in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advised, my friend, you are being washed away in the material nature's waves of time. Please try to understand that you are the eternal servant of the Lord. Then everything will stop and you will be eternally happy. Text 22. Kechit karma vadantyenam svabhavam apare nripa ekekalam pare daivam pumsakamam utapare. The differentiation among the varieties of life and their suffering and enjoyment is explained by some to be the result of karma. Others say it is due to nature, others due to time, others due to fate, and still others say that it is due to desire. Purport. There are different types of philosophers: Mimamsakas, atheists, astronomers, sexualists, and so many other classifications of mental speculators. The real conclusion is that it is our work only that binds us within this material world and the different varieties of life. How these varieties have sprung up is explained in the Vedas. It is due to the desire of the living entity. Living entity is not some dead stone. He has different varieties of desire or kama. The Vedas say kamo karshit. The living entities are originally parts of the Lord, like sparks of a fire, but they have dropped to this material world, attracted by a desire to lord it over nature. That is a fact. Every living entity is trying to lord it over material resources to the best of his ability. This kama, or desire, cannot be annihilated. There are some philosophers who say that if one gives up his desires, he again becomes liberated. But it is not at all possible to give up desire, for desire is a synonym of the living entity. For desire is a symptom of the living entity. If there were no desire, then the living entity would be a dead stone. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore advises that one turn his desire towards serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then desire becomes purified. And when one's desires are purified, one becomes liberated from all material contamination. And the conclusion is that the different philosophers' theories to explain the varieties of life and their pleasure and pain are all imperfect. The real explanation is that we are eternal servants of God, and that as soon as we forget this relationship, we are thrown into the material world, where we create our different activities and suffer or enjoy the result. We are drawn into this material world by desire, but the same desire must be purified and employed in the devotional service of the Lord. Then our disease of wandering in the universe under the different forms and conditions will end. Text 23. Avyaktasya prameyasya nanhashaktudharyasya cha navaichikirshitam tata kovedatha svasambhavam. The absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to the understanding of imperfect sensory endeavor, nor is he subject to direct experience. He is the master of varieties of energies, like the full material energy, and no one can understand his plans or actions. Therefore, it should be concluded that although he is the original cause of all causes, no one can know him by mental speculation. Purport. The question may be raised, since there are so many varieties of philosophers theorizing in different ways, which of them is correct? The answer is that the absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to direct experience or mental speculation. The mental speculators may be called Dr. Frog. The story is that a frog in a 3-foot well wanted to calculate the length and breadth of the Atlantic Ocean on the basis of his knowledge of his own well, but it was an impossible task for Dr. Frog. A person may be a great academician, scholar, or professor. but he cannot speculate and expect to understand the absolute truth, for his senses are limited. The cause of all causes, the absolute truth, can be known from the absolute truth himself, and not by our ascending process to reach him. When the sun is not visible at night, or when it is covered by a cloud in the day, it is not possible to uncover it, either by bodily or mental strength, or by scientific instruments. Although the sun is there in the sky, no one can say that he has discovered a torchlight so powerful that if one goes on a roof and focuses the torchlight in the night sky, the sun will be seen. There is no such torch, nor is it possible. The word avyakta, unmanifested, in this verse indicates that the absolute truth cannot be manifested by any strain of so-called scientific advancement of knowledge. Transcendence is not the subject matter of direct experience. The absolute truth may be known in the same way as the sun covered by a cloud or covered by night. For when the sun rises in the morning in its own way, then everyone can see the sun, everyone can see the world, and everyone can see himself. This understanding of self-realization is called Atma Tattva. Unless, however, one comes to this point of understanding Atma Tattva, one remains in the darkness in which he was born. Under the circumstances, no one can understand the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is equipped with varieties of energies as stated in the Vedic literature. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. He is equipped with the energy of eternal time. Not only does he have the material energy which we see and experience, but he has also many reserve energies that he can manifest in energies. But he has also many reserve energies that he can manifest in due course of time when necessary. The material scientist can simply study the partial understanding of the varieties of energies. He can take up one of the energies and try to understand it with limited knowledge, but still it is not possible to understand the absolute truth in full by dint of material science. No material scientist can foretell what is going to happen in the future. The Bhakti Yoga process, however, is completely different from so-called scientific advancement of knowledge. A devotee completely surrenders unto the Supreme, who reveals that by his causeless mercy, who reveals himself by his causeless mercy. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Dadhami Buddhi Yogam Tam. The Lord says, I have given intelligence. And what is that intelligence? Yenamam upayantite. The Lord gives one the intelligence to cross over the ocean of nescience and come back home, back to Godhead. In conclusion, the course of all causes, the cause of all causes, the absolute truth, or the supreme Brahman, cannot be understood by philosophical speculation, but he reveals himself to his devotee because the devotee fully surrenders unto his lotus feet. Bhagavad Gita is therefore to be accepted as a revealed scripture spoken by the Absolute Truth himself when he descended to this planet. If any intelligent man wants to know what God is, he should study this transcendental literature under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Then it is very easy to understand Krishna as he is. And thus ends our reading for today. We will continue from text 24 on Friday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhakti Veda Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Nrsimhapali Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath
Jai,
Baladev Subhadra Dhruv ki jai. Ganga
Jai,
Mai Yamuna Mai ki jai. Vrindavan
Jai,
Dham ki jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai. Sham
yes,
Kund Radha Kund ki jai. Tulsi Devi
Jai,
Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai.
Jai,
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Harinam
Jai,
Sankirtan Yagya ki jai.
Jai,
Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Princeton
Jai,
Bhakti Vedanta Institute ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai.
Jai,
Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Bol.
Jai,
Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi ki jai. Hare
Jai
Krishna.
Gurudev. श्रीपाद कृष्ण केशव प्रभु जी की जय। दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी।
Anabhasati.